was all other people here that have called in.
Yeah, from residents. I think it's just sort of,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's residents joining in, and some are on the video or Zoom, and some are by audio.
Did it work out?
no,
And when Hank
he's on.
talks,
He'll unmute himself.
will he be full screen?
I don't know that he'll be full screen, but you'll see him and you'll be able to hear him.
You can make it full screen. You can put it on speaker view.
Yeah.
All right, so Hank is, we unmuted you, and when you're, I believe if you unmute yourself, when you want to speak, we'll hear you. I'll test it.
He can't see us though.
No, he could just see Debbie. Yeah.
Oh, I see, there's a camera.
No, he's not unmuted. Hang on, he's trying to unmute and it didn't work. You need to probably go to or unmute him.
That's not me.
Try it now, Hank?
There you go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we want to just keep you off of mute.
Okay.
All right. So it's 2 o'clock, so we are going to get started. We have a number of residents here in Crichton Hall, and then we have many people joining on Zoom, and we even have some on audio. So since this is our first time conducting the meeting by Zoom, please be patient with us. But good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our annual financial review and rate information meeting. Thank you, Hank Keith, our Chief Financial Officer, for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here. First, what I'm going to do, the meeting will be a little bit different than normal, not much, but first I'm going to review with you the information that Hank Keith reviewed with the Board of Directors. So it's not so much following the PowerPoint, but just some information. And then I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint will be on, but then I'll start flipping through the PowerPoint slides and going through that to provide you some more information. And we'll be going over some of the rates and the capital information from the budget meeting. And then I received about 5 questions, so we'll review those 5 questions and answer those. And then we will be able to open it up to for residents to ask questions. And I know Hank is always very popular, and he usually gets quite a number of questions. So for Westminster Communities of Florida, their continued strategy is to offset any potential reductions in Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, and by increasing the amount of private pay revenue we're receiving. So that has been one of the initiatives for us. We've been preparing and executing these plans on increasing our current occupancy in residential living and assisted living, adding additional units through Westminster on a timely and manageable basis in residential and assisted living. And Westminster is budgeting for an operating margin of approximately 4%. With Florida Amendment 2, the $15 minimum wage initiative from 2020, this was approved by voters on November 3rd. This initiative increases the state minimum wage to $15 per hour through a phase-in period between September 2021 and September 2026. We anticipate this amendment to cost the organization a cumulative $2 million over the next 6-year period. And due to a competitive job market, we've already started to move some positions to a higher rate of pay. At this time, entrance fee prices will not be increased in the next fiscal year. COVID-19 has had an adverse effect on Westminster sales in the fiscal year of 2020-2021. Westminster has decided to maintain entrance fee prices at the current levels and revisit in the middle of the new fiscal year. Last year, we increased entrance fee prices anywhere from 0 to 10%. Entrance fees received, net of refunds, are budgeted to be approximately $49.5 million, which is based upon the need to maintain occupancy in the locations and levels of care where needed. In addition, new construction at Westminster Shores and Westminster Winter Park, or Baldwin Park, is anticipated to yield $33 million in new entrance fees. The entrance fees received will be used to fund debt service, reserves, and to fund capital improvements at our communities. The following is a list of major assumptions in the operating budget. A, included in salaries, wages, and benefits expenses expenses, which is 56% of our annual operating expenses, is a provision of an average increase of 3% for all positions. Our organization will continue to adjust wage rates to meet market demands. B, registered nurses and CNAs. The budget assumes that the current required CNA minimum staff ratio of 2.5 hours per patient day will not be changed by Florida legislature in 2020. We do run slightly above that. And the budgets also assume that the required licensed nurse staff ratio of 1.0 hours per patient day will not change, and we run slightly above that state requirement also. C, health insurance benefits are provided to employees who work 30 hours or more each week, and we are anticipating an increase in our health insurance rates of approximately 19%. And at the time that Hank was at this board meeting and announcing the finances, at that point, he didn't even really know. I think we were still looking at, I think Hank, you said 25%, but it is now confirmed that it's a 19%. Our medical trend spend recently has been very high in recent months, and we expect an increased usage by our employees that have deferred medical treatments due to COVID. Employees that participate in the wellness programs pay approximately 20% of the cost of their health insurance, and we do not expect the employee share of health insurance costs to increase in the next fiscal year. D, for the proposed 21-22 budget, a proposed contribution to the 403B retirement plan is a match of the employee contribution up to 2%. The 403B retirement plan is available for all qualified employees with more than 1 year of service. If the organization has a better year than expected, additional funding can be contributed to the 403B retirement plan at the discretion of the board of directors. Property insurance. That includes named wind and hurricane insurance costs are expected to increase by approximately 30%. This is based on discussions with our property insurance broker. And then food and related supply costs are anticipated to increase anywhere from 1 to 9%. And then occupancy percentages have been budgeted at the fiscal year 2020-21 trends. As we continue operating in a COVID-19 environment, we have taken a more conservative stance on occupancy levels in the coming year. The budget reflects our staff's commitment to our residents and a program of stewardship. And this is where I'd like to try to show the PowerPoint. Hold on.
And then the share on the right bottom.
Yeah, she did just
There you go.
So this one. There we go. All right, so this is where I like to put this up because we do have a mission statement that we do live by here at Westminster St. Augustine and all of Westminster. This is in all the offices. This is just in all some common areas, and this is just a portion of that mission statement. And when we have new staff on board, I review the mission statement with them, and I cover this paragraph especially. The budget reflects our staff's commitment to our residents, a program of stewardship and utilizing our resources well. Our staff's commitment and performance includes the following. We want to maintain and increase our current occupancy rates, operating on budget each and every day, adjust spending levels for labor and non-labor costs to the occupancy levels of the community, continue savings through repurchasing, renegotiated contracts, and working with our existing vendors to maximize efficiency for each dollar expended, and continued savings through labor and cost efficiencies. We've worked diligently to prepare this budget and believe the budget is realistic, attainable, and adequate to provide continued value, security, and quality services for our residents. The budget process for this past year, during the months of September and October, I meet with the department heads and staff to review staffing patterns and consider the labor hours required to continue providing quality services to the residents. As part of this process, the proposed labor rates and labor hours are reviewed with the CFO, COO, and the VP of HR. Labor rates are based on labor market studies done for the region in which the community is located. The results are then compiled and the labor budget is established. In early November, all community executive directors, health center administrators, and management staff meet collectively for 3 days with the CEO, COO, CFO, and Westminster Services management staff to review all payroll and non-payroll expenses. This year, the meeting was done a little bit differently because it was virtual. Expenses are reviewed on a per unit basis for all communities, and expenses are presented for review showing the per unit cost of the proposed monthly budget. The last 12 months, 6 months, and prior year averages, actual expense. Observations, ideas, and suggestions are carefully reviewed to find ways to operate more efficiently while still providing quality services to the residents of our communities. And I have to tell you, I've been participating in these meetings quite a bit, and Hank is always questioning and asking all of us to brainstorm to find out what we're each doing to see if there's something we can each do better, which is, and it's fun, and at times it gets a little, maybe not so much fun, but it's like, but it's all right. It's good. So then, monthly daily service fees. So following the operating expense budget meeting, summaries of the expenses are prepared to determine changes required in monthly daily service fees. Proposed rate adjustments are prepared with the following before being recommended for presentation to the community committee for review. We look at operating cost increases, cost of living increase, the healthcare inflation index, announced social security increase, the impact now of COVID-19, and monthly service fee charges being charged by the facilities in the surrounding community. And capital projects, and I'll be reviewing some of the capital projects that were proposed. And for capital, when we do the capital request, we also look out 5 years and try to plan for capital 5 years out. And renovation costs associated with unit turnovers and information services costs associated with computer technology is included in that. I'm trying to figure out why it's not turning the page. Oh, here we are. What did you do? Yeah. So our budget philosophy, monthly service fees are used for monthly operating expenses, and you'll see those listed to the left. And then entrance fees from new residents are used for debt service, redevelopment reserve, capital, vacancy refurbishment, statutory reserves, and others. We don't budget for investment income or contributions, so that's important to know. Did you click this one to go up? Okay, thank you. So the COVID-19 impact on the budget. The budget assumes normal operations in the new fiscal year, so the budget is pre-COVID operations. It's not including all that we've incurred with COVID. We've not budgeted for additional personal protective equipment or other expenses we incurred in the fiscal year related to COVID-19. So assuming that required COVID-19 testing will be greatly reduced or eliminated, because right now, many of you know we're testing some folks twice a week, some every 2 weeks, and some once a month. Capital projects related to COVID-19 will be completed by March of 2021, and right now we had a consultant come out to look at some negative air rooms for the health center and assisted living. So I'm still waiting to hear some more feedback about that visit from management services. And we can talk a little bit more about that when I have the capital slide up. So Westminster Communities of Florida overall occupancy, as you can see, is listed here with the skilled nursing, residential living, which is independent living, and assisted living. For us, Westminster St. Augustine right now, our skilled nursing is a budget of 66%. Our new budget is going to be at 67%. For independent living, our budget right now is at 92%, and that's going to stay flat. So our budget for the new year coming up is going to be 92%. And then assisted living is at 70% now, and it's going to stay at the 70%. With the reduction in occupancy, it's going to impact nursing, assisted living, and dining costs because of the reduction in meals projected to be served. So nursing, assisted living, and dining all have variable budgets, which means that the budget's based on the actual occupancy each day. Or for dining, especially independent living, how many residents participate in dining. So it's the cost per day for the unit or meal, and it's based on the number of residents. So here is probably one slide that you're all anticipating. Well, how is it going to affect me? So for independent living, we are going to be doing a 2.5% fee increase. Last year it was 3%. So this year it's 2.5%. Assisted living is going to be 4%, and it was 4% last year. And skilled nursing is 5% this year, and last year it was 4%. And rate increase letters will be placed in your cubbies this afternoon. I wanted to be able to meet with you prior to those going out. And thank you to Tara for helping getting those ready. You all might not want to thank Tara. So for the major assumptions, again, I reviewed some of this at the beginning, but wage rate increases on an average increase of 3%. That doesn't mean that everybody gets 3%. We get that amount. If somebody's not performing well, we will have been speaking to them. They might get something lower. If something's like someone's really excelling, they may get a higher increase, but our average is a 3%. Health insurance, here I have the 25% increase. I didn't change it on the slide. I just was told just very recently that it's a 19% increase. And we're currently at 30% with our current carrier, and this will continue to be negotiated. And Hank, I'm not sure if that's still being negotiated or if it's done.
For health insurance, it's done at 19%, staying with Cigna. For property insurance, we don't renew until May, so we've purchased some of the renewals that are happening. One floor, somewhere between 25 and 35. And we all know it's related to how many hurricanes did we have last year. So, and with anybody knows who has separate property insurance, you always end up paying somebody else's claim. So that's what we're exactly doing. So our insurance is going up about $1 million this next year. So, and we insure for a little over $1 billion in property. So every building that we own, every building in Westminster, and obviously every vehicle are all fully insured.
Here's our raw food. Our major food supplier has notified us that they're expecting 1% increase. And the communities, it says here with a 9% increase, will have new dining programs to enhance the dining experience. And we are one of those communities. It is something new that they're going to be rolling out, and we are going to be getting a new enhanced dining program. So looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting more detailed information. I know Rocco has been working with Mario. Many of you know Mario, and we will be rolling that program out and giving you more information regarding that.
And Debbie, I think most of that increase is raw food.
Correct. On utilities, there's no increase, and management fees is no increase. It will remain at the 5% of budgeted NOI, net operating revenues, plus net entrance fees received. And then the capital project summary. I mentioned already about the negative air rooms in the health center and assisted living. This is something new for us. I know, I'm not sure which other Westminster communities are getting this, but this has to do with preparation for future. Hopefully, we won't need them, but just.
Well, Debbie, I think it's just one of the things we've learned, Debbie, during COVID, is that we just be ready in case in another 100 years there's another COVID. I'll just say, so we've just learned some things, and we can do these things very easily, even if there is no COVID, but just to make sure we're ready, in case this continues on, or something else comes along down the road. We're just trying to learn lessons and apply them.
Yes. The painting of the apartment building 3 and 4, surface seal coat, the health center and clubhouse entry, clubhouse restroom renovations, health center refurbishment, a 14-passenger bus, an omnicycle for therapy. Therapy had requested that. And then Hank will probably talk some more about the adding of residential units.
Yes, we're planning to add about 50 residential units over the next 2 to 3 years. We have been trying to acquire the property across the pond, to the south of you. That piece of land has been sitting there pretty much forever. We have not been successful at acquiring it. The owner of that land is pretty much stuck at 5.6 million. And 5.6 million is not the problem. The problem is the land is only zoned for 98 units, which means roughly about $56,000 a unit. The appraisal that we had done had the range of that price should have been somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 a unit. So I told our board that, they agree with me that we just can't pay prices like that. We've gone as high as $27,000 a unit at one community, but 56 is too much. And allegedly, they're telling us that they have a buyer for the property at the 5.6 million, 98 units. So there's not much we can do with that. So Chris Whitberg, our Vice President of Construction, is moving the planning over to the existing campus, and we'll start that process. So your redevelopment committee, which I assume you have one, should have a meeting with Chris Whitberg in the next couple of months, and the planner that we brought on as a consultant also for the process. So that'll all be in the works with Debbie. Debbie will get the redevelopment committee on all that. So there's no formal plans. There's not exactly sure what it's going to look like. Well, the villas, the apartments, that all has to be worked out, and we'd like to work with the redevelopment committees at the community, so that we're all in agreement with what needs to be done for the campus.
And Bob Linville has gathered a group of residents to be on that committee, and I think we're trying for a meeting to occur at the beginning of March. It hasn't been confirmed yet. So we did receive, that's the end of the presentation in itself. I did ask if anyone had any questions, and we had five questions, so I'm going to review those before we open it up for questions. So someone asked, with our employee turnover appearing high, are our wages sufficient to maintain the personnel we want? So my response is, well, we conduct wage surveys, and we adjust our wages based upon the results. If we're having difficulty hiring for position, Management Services Human Resource Department is notified, and they do another wage survey for us. And currently, because of staffing concerns, not only here at Westminster St. Augustine, but the other communities, like my sister communities, Management Services has formed a task force, and they are looking at recruitment and rewards for staff. What can we do better? What changes do we need to make? The other thing, Hank and I were talking the other day, and then I've also heard this from Sandra Noble, my regional VP, that Westminster's always thought that, well, for wages, we should be in the middle of the line with competition. And they are looking at going to more of the 75 percentile, instead of being down the middle, bringing it up some. So, Hank, did you have anything?
Debbie, Terry Rogers, as you know, our new CEO that started in April, he hasn't had a whole lot to do because it's been just kind of working through COVID, but this is one of the initiatives he wants to work on, is seeing what it will take to get us to the 75th percentile for wages and benefits. It's called a rewards, and I'm not 100% sure what all that means, but compensation needs to be looked at from pay and benefits at the same time. So that's the initiative the task force is looking at right now, and what the cost of that will be. They're working on that. Probably done that in the next 3 months, I would guess. And so, but just to reiterate what Debbie said, if we have problems hiring in certain positions, we will go out and do those studies and monitor that. When we have exit interviews, we find out why people are leaving and things like that. So it's a process for us to go through. So, but I will tell you, one of our communities, that's your sister community, they still cannot get certified nursing aides to come to work even at the 75th percentile. And they might try to go to the 100th percentile to see if that will attract employees. So it's not always about benefits and pay. So.
Yeah. The second question was, I believe these issues, and I believe this person means, I believe these wages will have an impact, concern about wages will have an impact on the planned expansion for Westminster St. Augustine. With the problems we're having, or currently experiencing with retention, partially due to low wages for St. Johns County, which I believe has the lowest unemployment rate in the state, how will we staff and retain our expansion needs? I think that's similar question, so what we just addressed, I'm hoping we answered that for that person.
And also, Debbie, the plan is really to add up to probably 50 residential units of some type. So that's minimal staffing. If we were increasing the health center or the assisted living, that would be a different question. So we're also looking at how to create a memory unit either through the existing assisted living or splitting the assisted living or adding on to the existing assisted living. That's one of the things we are looking into, that I brought back from one of our live meetings that seemed so long ago. But our staff here are well aware of that need to have some kind of memory unit on the campus.
Thank you. The third question was, although the dining room has a budget they need to meet, what needs to be done to allow Westminster St. Augustine to have more control over the menu as opposed to having to keep a Westminster-wide menu? So I'm not sure that this person that wrote this is aware, but the dining does work with the dining committee, and they take a look at the menus before they're rolled out, and they do make changes up to 20%. And now with this new enhanced dining program that we'll be getting for the next fiscal year, there might be even some more opportunity there. So, the fourth question, when will the medical deduction type B contract letter for 2020 be issued? And I did ask, Hank, I did ask Tara, and she said it usually happens at the beginning of February. Do I have anything?
It will happen probably between Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. All the tax letters will be out for all the communities Tuesday or Wednesday next week. We have to wait for the December close, and believe it or not, this tax calculation is not that easy to do, so, especially here community. So, half of your calculations are done by an actuary, so it's a little different, so.
Okay, thank you. And this one's for you, because I'm not sure. Would it make sense that the minimum liquid reserve of $3 million for Westminster St. Augustine under section 651.071, Florida OIR, be increased or decreased annually by the current headline inflation rate or the government PCE rate?
I wish we could just increase it or decrease it based on the inflation rate, but that would violate chapter 651. Basically what happens with the minimum liquid reserve, it is recalculated every year based on your audited costs. So every March 31st, after the audit is issued, we calculate based on the OIR forms, Office of Insurance Regulation forms, the new amount. The new amount for Westminster St. Augustine is now $3.4 million. So it is probably something that will never move down because it's based on your operating costs and your debt service for the campus. So it could go down a little bit, but it usually doesn't. So right now it's standing at $3.4 million based on the state of Florida calculation that we did. And those forms have been late getting out. So if you've seen the quarterly reports getting late to you also, we've had big problems with the OIR. They had to change all their forms this year because we changed chapter 651 of the Florida statutes. And it's a mess. I'll just be flat out honest with you, it's a mess. And we finally started issuing the reports, even though they're wrong. We actually added our corrected reports behind them to say, hey, here's your reports, but here's how it's supposed to look. So we're having a problem with it. So we'll work through that with them and hopefully get it fixed soon. It's really not a hard fix, but the government's kind of hard to deal with right now because of COVID. So they do have some people out. We'll get
That's probably the problem.
yeah.
So I think we can minimize the PowerPoint if possible, and then we can see more people on the screen, and then we can open it up for questions.
Debbie?
Sure, I'm gonna have you come up here, but let me, okay, so Hank, you're still there, and everybody can still see. Yay! We have a question from the floor here, so please be careful. Watch the wire.
Hi, Hank, Linville. Couple of easy questions. Do all of our 10 communities budget for an operational surplus?
All but one.
Okay.
Westminster Braden Manor, our original community was opened in 1962, is struggling. As you know, it's some of the cities that you lived in, and you live in St. Augustine. You know, sometimes in 1962 you were in the best neighborhood there was. Well, the neighborhood has changed just a little bit, and it's a little bit more challenging to get residents to move into that community. Also, pricing is a lot lower at that community. So they're basically at a break even for the community. So overall, right now, we're at $350 Westminster St. Augustine's at 5%, and actually the highest margin in this budget is at Lincoln Creek and Westminster Palms at 7%.
The next easy question is there a timeline for memory care units? I'm getting a lot of questions about full memory care.
I don't have a timeline, but you've probably got 6 months to figure out what to do, and then you probably got, depending on what you do, you could get another year of construction, and you have to add on probably 6 months of approvals. We're finding there are lots of delays in approvals of plans, because the government's not around. Maybe the vaccine will help speed up the government somewhat. But the plan that I would like to see is somehow working with the existing assisted living, because you saw the occupancy. Your occupancy tends to run low in assisted living anyway. It was possible to break that unit into maybe 10 memory and 20 assisted, or vice versa. Bring a memory garden out to the side of that building, something like that. So, because your campus is fairly small, it doesn't need to be a large unit at this time.
Good, thank you. Last question is a little tougher. Recently I came across what we start our housekeepers at. It's an embarrassingly low wage for a facility of this quality. I've done some surveys at Gate Petroleum and public supermarkets. Their floor sweepers make $2 an hour more than our housekeepers. I'm not sure where the wage surveys are being done, if they encompass all of Jacksonville or are specific to St. Johns County. And a tag along with that is that since we are remote, we can't hire at lower income rates for people who have to travel this distance. That is a frequent turnoff for people who inquire about employment here. I can tell you that the residents here feel strongly that our staff, first of all, we appreciate our staff, are severely underpaid and really would like to see perhaps more than a small incremental increase across the board here. And I guess that's a recommendation as much as it is a question. But the real question is, where do we get these wage surveys from? Because they certainly don't apply to this area.
Well, did you ask, is that a full-time wage with benefits?
No, sir. Don't have, I did not ask that question.
Okay, you need to ask that question, because you'll see a lot of companies doing that, because when the healthcare reform came in, a lot of companies went to part-time, took employees to part-time, so they raised the wages up somewhat, but they also took them off benefits, because they didn't want to have to pay for health insurance. So that's one of the things you need to consider as part of that. But as we talked about a little bit before, there is a task force formed, looking at moving us from the 50th percentile to the 70th percentile of pay. I don't know what those numbers look like, and I don't know what they look like, so we have to wait for that task force, which should only take a few months to figure out what the wage rate should be. So
I understand, but we're losing people for $1 an hour, and it seems a shame when they get them here, get them trained.
it's interesting that people are jumping jobs during a pandemic.
It is.
And the dollar, I understand the dollar, it's $2,000 a year, I completely understand that. But we also understand that, we're one of the few operations that continued during the pandemic. We're pretty much recession and pandemic proof somewhat, because nobody lost their job. You weren't working at a bar, or you weren't working at a hotel, where you probably got laid off or furloughed. So that's the other thing the employees need to consider too. So at the same time, the stability of operations. But yeah, I agree with you. We don't want to lose employees. It's very expensive to lose employees, and we don't want, especially don't want to lose the good ones. So that's why the task force is formed. That's why Terry Rogers has made a point to take a look at that. What is where should we be as an organization?
Good deal, thank you.
Big Brenda, can't pronounce your last name, but
We're the census. She's asked a question, unmute her.
You have to unmute.
he does. And you,
Hang on, we're unmuting you.
Brenda, you'll need to unmute yourself.
there you go.
planning for the budget for this year for capital, I didn't mention Gary. During the campus, huh? No, Gary, the head of the maintenance committee.
Gary Livingston.
Gary?
Uh-huh.
Gary Livingston?
Livingston, thank you. Mentioned him about, oh, when's that memory chart coming? I mentioned to him about having the roads in here, I don't know, resurfaced, sealed, whatever. There's the asphalt is breaking down on many of the roads. Loudon is one that specifically comes to mind to me. And I was just wondering, I didn't see it on the capital budget, I wondered if that's being looked at or not looked at?
Paving the streets, yes, that is being looked at. And I believe it's even in for now,
Mhm.
so I have to just check and see if that's on one of the PRs.
Debbie, I think that's a project could complete. If you determine, in the middle of February that it needs to get done, then you can get bids for it and submit a project request. So
Okay.
we can get that done. That's pretty much routine work that we did. I think I even noticed that last time I was there. We have it out in February.
Mignon.
You're on mute. There you
Hi,
go.
thank you very much. Mignon Williams, I have a question going back to the hiring. Do we know the cost, Keith, you mentioned before, of losing people? And if we were more than competitive, would we be able to break in and accelerate more of these increases in salaries? Because it seems to me that it costs more to hire a person than what it is to keep a person.
It does, you're absolutely right. That'll be part of the study done by the task force, but I don't know the exact number, it varies by communities, of what it costs to lose an employee. I will tell you that it has decreased because of online. People going online to hire, and now people going online to interview, those kind of things. So the cost has decreased, not a lot, but a little bit, going forward. So, it's part of the study, and that's been that way forever. You don't want to lose people because you lose that. Besides the cost, you got the cost of training, the timing, the thinking, and the history, and all that kind of stuff. So we've actually been working on recruitment and retention for quite a while. COVID kind of pushed it to the side while we focused on COVID, and we're returning to that project. And some of you might be aware of working on a project called Drive, which talks about the organization's culture, which we also that will help retain existing staff at the same time. So it's not all about money, it's also about the culture that they're working at the same time. So there's two parts to it, but I fully understand the money requirement.
So since you brought up the word culture, what is being done from the corporate level to show a more diversified culture within our communities?
I don't have an answer for that, I'll tell you the truth. I mean, we don't really market like that. I don't know. We basically market, correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie, we market to wherever the marketing stats tell us to market to. It's basically, you've got to have a certain amount of income, you have a certain amount of assets to live in the community. So we generally send it out to those zip codes, I guess. And I'm not a marketing person, so I'm talking a little bit out of hand here, but that's the way I thought it would look at. So I'm not aware of any diversity.
Usually it's to market for residents and even for staff, it's normally a 10-mile radius, but because of our location, we've gone out further to probably a 20-mile radius for demographic studies, and that's where our marketing materials go to. And I know, Mignon, that you worked with Nicole Mueller on looking at some of the brochures and the website, and I know they made some adjustments to that already.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, is work with Michelle and Sandra Noble on those thoughts and ideas and get those to us.
This is my last thought. I can't believe that I'm the only person of color that I know of between two communities that could meet the profile. Thank you.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. Sure. Any other questions?
The telecommunications has been out several times. Nobody has any questions, I'll keep going. Telecommunication system seems to be going out quite frequently.
So there were
And-
two, Mignon, there were two questions here in the audience, but,
Okay.
as for the, telephone, we are looking at a backup, SCI line, so that if our current provider goes down, it will tie into a new phone line to come into the business lines. What has happened the past two times is that fiber optics line was cut. And it took,
All that construction out there on the parkway, on the main drive coming in off of 95, they're cutting lines left and right, and that's the big problem. So what they're trying to do is now bring in is an internet line, which is not running down the same avenues, so it would switch over to that line. So this is not this cutting of wires is getting really popular this year, so this is our second community that's had problems with cutting lines. And I guess when you cut a fiber line, it's not like the old telephone lines where you get somebody out there in the tent and they start reworking the lines. I guess the fiber's much tougher to fix. They're not, it usually takes days to fix, so.
You can mute me, but thank you for responding to your questions, my questions.
You're welcome.
This is Sharon Ivy Noel. My question is about your task force. Is there a timeline for that task force?
As fast as possible.
So,
I would guess in the next 3 months, they would have their results.
all right, thank you.
we have someone coming up from the audience.
Okay?
Just watch your step in the wire,
Yep.
please.
I won't jump on
I
it.
know, it's making me nervous.
Hi, it's Jane Blocker. What percentage of the employees at Westminster St. Augustine actually have benefit packages?
Debbie, you have to tell me how many part-time versus full-time that you have. Do you know that?
No, I don't know that. I could probably,
I
I
would-
can get that from Mary.
I would guess it's probably 80% are on benefits. Plus, that would be my guess. HR, your local HR can tell you that number. So I would guess, we're mostly full-time. The part-timers are usually receptionists and maybe some people working in the health center. Maybe some drivers are part-time, but we try not to use a lot of part-time, but we do have some part-timers. And some people want part-time.
Well, I was thinking the dining staff might be a lot of part-time, the kids.
Probably the kids are,
Yeah.
the kids don't want the benefits, they're gonna live forever, so they're not, you know.
That's true, that's true.
So, we were all that way, come on, we know that, we were all that way. when we were-
Totally agree. What is a 401K? Yes, so, but I guess my concern is that those kind of workers are where some of the turnover is the highest. Thus, that $1 an hour, $2 an hour is gigantic. That's all.
Absolutely agree. I remember getting paid by Disney $5 an hour.
Anybody else here?
I
Okay.
think I got Mr. Lake, you got
Mr.
me in there?
Lake, Mr. Lake. It's right here. Sorry, we're trying to find you in the, what was that game show? The Squares?
Oh, Hollywood
Hollywood
Squares.
Squares.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
you got it.
How far ahead of time do you have to issue self-bonds to finance a project like the new units here at this site?
We issued those bonds in October 2020. When we refinanced the debt at Westminster St. Augustine, brought Westminster St. Augustine into the obligated group, we borrowed additional funds at that time, about $50 million. So we earmarked about $25 million for the residential units on that campus.
Are they, that maturity dates structured out of the financial, you don't have one day,
35 years.
25 years?
35 years, and I think the average rate was, long-term was 4.12, something like that. Or might have been approved.
So that
Is it-
once it's built, does that 4.12% go on to, Westminster's Augustine budget?
Yes, your portion of the debt stays on Westminster St. Augustine. But we won't know how much we know how much we refinanced with your existing debt, but until we start using the funds, we've estimated how much funds you will use as part of the debt, and that's your interest. So if that changes, your interest expense will change at the same time. would act.
Are you finding the new bond issues is going, the interest rates going lower, like below 3%?
Yeah, some of our bonds were below 3%. When you get out to 30, 35 years, you're more in the 4% range. So our bonds range from the starting point in the low 2s all the way up into the 4s. It's an average rate. So we were fortunate to do that in October. We maintained our A- rating as part of those bonds, which was really, we were surprised during COVID that they would keep our A- rating, but we did do that, and so we're very pleased with that.
Okay, I was just thinking, if you could get cheaper money right now for projects, 2 years ago, further out would be.
Well, I've been borrowing money for this organization for about 28 years, and I will tell you, every time after I've closed a deal, interest rates have gone down. That's a fact, absolute fact. So next time I go out to market, I'll let you guys know so you can borrow money out.
Question?
There was, you have, who has a question? I see something in the chat, let's see. There's been minimum to no feedback from marketing the past 9 months on the revised marketing materials. I'll see if I can't get a response for you, Mignon.
And your marketing's been good,
Yeah,
especially during these days, yeah. So.
very good. Fritz and the marketing ambassadors are amazing. Any other question? I'm sorry.
That's the big key for all the industry, is just getting people to move in. So I heard 2 days ago there was a marketing event where they had residents on a panel speaking to prospective residents, taking questions.
Yes.
And that's really the only way it's going to happen. Prospective residents need to understand how life was during COVID, that community, because all they're hearing is the horror stories of nursing homes on the TV. They're not hearing about the other levels of care and making assumptions. So that's really the only weakness the community, the industry has. Our organization's doing well, 88% occupancy. The rest of the industry is about at 80% occupancy, so we're doing well in maintaining. So we need to sell entrance fees, so we're getting ready to open Baldwin Park, final phase, 50 units, and 75 units, and they're all pre-sold, so we expect them all to move in over the next 3 months. And then at Shores and St. Pete, their new building opened in June, and they're fully sold out also. So we're cranking away here, going along. And then Julington Creek, if you don't know, we'll start their memory support building, 32 units here in just a few months. So they will have a separate building.
I have a couple of comments. We may have to go outside the 20-mile radius to attract diverse population who qualifies financially to live here. We actually do with marketing. We have some people that have come here from Georgia. And then, diversity emphasis and appearance in marketing for hiring versus residency. Yeah, there's a difference, definitely. Anybody have any other questions financially? Hank is more of a finance, that's why he's CFO, right?
Hmm.
Marketing. Anyone? All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Hank, I can't thank you enough for being here to assist and answer questions, and really appreciate it.
Everybody get your vaccine shot. Including staff.
The 2nd and 3rd,
Get out of this quickly.
February 2nd and 3rd, Walgreens will get that out to give everybody their second vaccine. So we're looking forward to that. That'll be most everybody here, and I want to say it's in the high 90s, a 90% of independent living residents got the vaccine.
96.
Is it 90? Do you remember? Is it 96%?
Is there anything, Debbie? No, is there anything we
Just
can
went
do?
out. Why did we lose it? Oh, it's reconnecting.
Holly did it.
I don't know.
That's weird.
I wonder if you lost, did you lose connection or did you move the wire at all?
No?
Oh, okay.
If, Debbie, is there anything we can do to help,